The voice wasn't hers. It was deep, old, and angry. That's what investigators would later say about the girl who became the center of the most infamous haunting in British history. This is the true story of the Enfield Poltergeist. A normal night, until it wasn't, in August 1977, at 284 Green Street in Enfield, North London. Life was hard, but manageable for Peggy Hodgson, a single mother raising 4 children. Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy. It was a modest council house, brick walls, creaky floors, peeling paint, a place where the family didn't have much, but they had each other. That summer evening seemed like any other. Peggy had just finished getting the kids into bed. She was tired, worn out from work, and looking forward to a few minutes of peace. But suddenly, the peace was shattered. Janet, just 11 years old, and her brother Johnny came running down the stairs, eyes wide, faces pale. "Mum," the dresser moved. Peggy raised an eyebrow, thinking it was just childish nonsense. Maybe the kids were playing games. But when she went upstairs, her world changed forever. In their shared bedroom, the heavy wooden chest of drawers, one they couldn't budge during cleaning, was sliding across the floor, slowly, deliberately, scraping with a low, dragging sound. Peggy pushed it back, but it didn't stay. It slid forward again, on its own. No wires, no tricks, no wind. Just a quiet house and something unseen moving the furniture. Peggy froze. The children screamed. And in that moment, something settled over the house. Something dark. The haunting begins. From that night on, the house came alive with terror. Loud knocks echoed from the walls at all hours. Footsteps thudded across the ceiling when no one was upstairs. Doors slammed violently. Chairs tipped over. Toys flew through the air, as if thrown by invisible hands. At first, Peggy thought it might be some kind of prank, but the fear in her children's eyes told her otherwise. Janet, in particular, seemed to be the target. She started having terrifying night episodes, waking up with a scream, her sheets ripped off, her body thrown from the bed. She complained of being watched, followed, touched, and worse, something had started speaking through her, a voice, a deep, gravelly male voice. One night, the family was gathered in the living room. When it happened, Janet's eyes glazed over, her mouth twisted, and a voice not hers growled from her throat. "I'm Bill. I died in that chair in the corner." Everyone froze. The voice continued, describing how it had gone blind before suffering a brain hemorrhage in that very house. Peggy was stunned. How could Janet know that? A neighbor would later confirm a man named Bill Wilkins had indeed lived there, and he had died in that very room, in that exact way. Help arrives and witnesses the impossible soon. The strange happenings made headlines. Paranormal investigators Maurice Grass and Guy Lyon Playfair from the Society for Psychical Research moved into the house. They weren't amateurs. They came with cameras, tape recorders, notebooks, and they would stay for months documenting everything. What they witnessed defied explanation. Curtains twisted into knots by themselves while the windows were shut. Small objects like marbles and Legos floated in midair before dropping straight down without a sound. A toy fire truck rolled across the floor and stopped at their feet. A chair lifted off the ground and slammed against the wall. One of the most terrifying moments came late one night. They watched as Janet, sleeping in bed, suddenly rose into the air, levitating. Her body went rigid, parallel to the ground. She hovered, suspended, then crashed down, bruised and crying. Photographs were taken, recordings made. One tape captured the terrifying voice again. "Just before I died, I went blind. Then I had a hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in the chair." A speech expert later analyzed the voice. It came from Janet's false vocal cords, deep in the throat, something that would destroy a child's voice if done for more than a few seconds. Janet spoke in that voice for hours. Skepticism, surveillance, and fear. Not everyone believed. Skeptics claimed the girls faked the events. At one point, Janet was caught bending a spoon. Another time, she tried to create knocking sounds with a broomstick. Janet later admitted that some things were faked under pressure, out of fear, or because people were losing interest. But the worst events, she never wavered. They were real, they were terrifying, and they left scars on everyone involved. Even the police weren't immune. One constable wrote in an official statement, "A chair moved across the room, but no one was near it." The BBC came to investigate. Their experienced crew left shaken, claiming their camera wires were ripped out, and footage mysteriously vanished. The entire house felt wrong, like it was watching. breathing, thinking, and through it all, the voice never stopped. It taunted the children, mocked the investigators, revealed secrets no one could have known. It cursed, it sang, it laughed, and once, it whispered something that chilled them all. "I won't leave, not until one of them dies." Janet began to unravel. She couldn't concentrate in school. Her grades collapsed. She stopped sleeping. She said she felt something inside her, controlling her, watching through her eyes, speaking through her mouth. Once, her mother found her gasping for air, wrapped tightly in a curtain, the fabric knotted around her throat. Eventually, she was taken to a psychiatric hospital for evaluation. She stayed there for weeks, monitored day and night. And even there, under 24-hour observation, the disturbances continued. Nurses saw her thrown across the room. Bite marks appeared on her arms. Bruises bloomed overnight. Doctors were baffled. No mental illness, no physical condition, no explanation. Just a girl being haunted by something no one could see. Then, silence. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. By 1979, the house grew quiet. No exorcism, no dramatic final battle, just an eerie calm. The family stayed in the house for a little while longer, but eventually, they moved away. Janet grew up, got married, tried to live a normal life. Years later, in interviews, she remained firm. "Yes, we faked a few things, but the worst parts, the things that terrified us, those were real. We lived through that, and many believed her." Maurice Grass, Guy Playfair, the police, the neighbors, even strangers who witnessed the events firsthand, they had no other explanation. Only this: something lived in that house, something angry, something powerful. Has it really left? In 2016, a journalist visited 284 Green Street. The house looked different, new coat of paint, new furniture, different family. But when asked if anything strange ever happened there, the current tenant looked uncomfortable, glanced at her partner, and softly said, "Sometimes, at night, we hear knocking from inside the walls." So the question remains, if the Enfield Poltergeist was real, if it once called that house home, did it ever truly leave? And if not, what's hiding behind your walls? What would you do if you heard footsteps in the attic when no one is home? What if the voice calling your name wasn't yours? So the next time you hear knocking from the other side of the door, think twice before you answer. Some knocks aren't looking for a reply.